The motion is, the House believes that if resilience had real economic and societal value, then decision makers would be implementing it already. Fred. Alexa, you're going to keep time. Thank you. Fred.
Can I just place it here?
You can if you want.
Excellent. Good evening, friends. We are strongly in favor of the motion, while our honorable, though combative colleagues to my left are charitable in intent, they're sadly misguided. Economic value is revealed by the choices made by decision makers related to the optimal level of utility offered by alternative options. When making decisions, people choose to maximize their own welfare. The prospect that people, cognizant of the stresses and shocks that threaten to decrease their welfare, would not choose a resilience approach is irrational. And while individuals may be driven by emotional and economically irrational behavior, while that is acknowledged, a society would not act in a manner counter to maximizing its welfare. Resilience presumes that a society would incur the cost of addressing risks of extremely low probability, the 100-year storm, which is economically suboptimal. It assumes a willingness to forego present value for potential future gain. Consequently, it's only in the wake of catastrophe when society has demonstrated the willingness to incur the costs of resilience, diagnosis, and design, and even that commonly has not led to a willingness to incur the costs of resilience building. And we see this evidence again and again. We see this evidence in New York, in New Orleans. Hopefully we won't see this evidence in Cape Town. But we haven't seen the willingness to actually invest beyond the diagnostic phase to actual implementation of resilience.
Steady.
While it is worthy charitable intent, and we appreciate your enthusiasm for this charity, it is valued only by those in a position to be charitable, which is because their economic welfare is secure. Thus, consider who, for instance, is investing in resilience. Philanthropic foundations. The Rockefeller Foundation, where I formerly served, funded the City Water Resilience Framework, funds the 100 Resilient Cities Network. The Lloyd's Register Foundation is funding the Resilience Shift, a philanthropic organization. Institutions with a public charitable intent.
Need to get that a bit closer.
Similarly, we see those institutions most engaged, the World Bank, USAID, the Swedish International Development Agencies, all with a public mandate to deliver a charitable purpose. Similarly, only the risk takers, innovators, and first movers are making private investments in this space. 1 minute, thank you. Only those willing to lose money see value in a resilience endeavor. Clearly, if resilience had real economic and societal value, those decision makers, private and public, would be investing in it and implementing it already. Thank you.
Great to see the team support there. It's overwhelming. I was almost moved to tears there, Juliet. Thank you very much. Ruth, you get the opportunity for your sort of riposte, your perspective, please. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I want to say that this motion is fundamentally flawed and arrogant. I have to say that was a hugely arrogant set of statements to make. Number one, resilience has value, and number two, decision makers are already implementing resilience. And I'm going to look at this in 3 levels. One is the human level, the next is the social level, and the third is that corporate level that you so clearly dismiss. So at a human level, we are inherently resilient as individuals. What is it that makes us human? We have families, we love each other, we are raised in communities, we save for the future, we have faith, many of us have faith, and we understand that we don't always understand what's happening in the future. We don't have risk registers for our own lives, but we have fundamental things that we do to be resilient. And we embrace arts and culture and things which have no value, which you couldn't monetize, but nevertheless we invest our time and money into it. At the second level, in society, we have constructed our society for balanced investments. On the opposition team, I think we have a regulator, and a regulator is put there through our taxation system in order to bring about balances in the system. If you go back in time, you look even back to biblical times, to Pharaoh's dream of 7 years of famine, what happened? They put aside their harvest to prepare for the unexpected in the future. If you look at the concepts of sabbatical in the Bible, you see that every 7 years you would forgive all debt. You would forgive all, and all your crimes would be removed. These are concepts of resilience which go right back to the beginnings of civilization. If you look to the Lisbon earthquake that happened so many years ago, you will see that the response to the Lisbon earthquake came through society implementing actions through, number one, the army, which is in itself an investment in resilience for a country, and number two, the church, which again is an investment in resilience. So these social constructs have been with us throughout time. Looking at our modern day society, we have a health system which provides a social welfare net which you wouldn't invest in if you were only thinking of yourself, and an education system which takes its children and gives children the tools to be resilient, to do the things. What is resilience? It's to anticipate, to monitor, to respond and to learn. And we equipped every one of our citizens to do that through taxation and through investments that we make collectively as a society. If you look at things like the Cabinet Office in the UK, they're making resilience decisions against highly unlikely events. And in Switzerland, I believe they have bunkers where every single citizen will be provided for in the event of some unlikely, unplanned circumstance. Then I want to raise this to the corporate level, which you so willingly dismiss, and look at this foundation itself, which is born from private capitalistic intent 250 years ago, and even Arab, which is based on 6 principles outlined by its founder, one of which should be to make a reasonable living, but the other 5 are fundamentally resilient principles about how you should go about doing business.
Well said.
Businesses, organizations, I want to say organizations which maximize profit do not survive. They don't survive. I sit on a board at a university, and we have a risk register. If you remove the left-hand column, which is risks, and just looked at the responses, they're all resilience responses. It is inherently a resilience tool that we're using at board level, and a board level has a legal responsibility to think about the sustainability of the organization. So again, resilience is built into the very fabric of the way that we construct capitalism. I finally want to tell a joke about engineering, because this is the problem of engineers. This whole debate has been constructed by engineering thinking, and I have to say. My father was a surgeon, and my father said, what's the difference between an engineer and a surgeon? He says, a surgeon kills people one at a time, right? So engineers... Okay, all right. Okay, so modern society... that the lack of resilience that we have discussed today, that is the basis of this motion, is a result of engineering arrogance. And that engineering arrogance has created a change in technology which has made that society inherently unresilient. So the challenge here is not that society is unresilient or decision makers are unresilient, but that engineers have created systems which have no resilience in them. So my challenge here is this delusion that engineers have, that they should be able to know and predict everything. And I'm putting the question back to you and saying, here's a challenge for you. All the decision makers are looking to you to give us the tools to keep resilience going in this inherently unstable system of systems that you have created. So I fundamentally disagree with the motion, and I think the response to the motion lies in the hands of the people in this room to put it right. Thank you.
It started. I'll allow you each an immediate sort of one-liner response. And then I think we'll open it up to a couple of questions, if that's okay. So, Fred? I saw smoke coming out of your ears, and I don't think you're an engineer.
Thank you, Mark. My new friend, dear colleague Ruth, unfortunately must resort to personal attacks to try to sway the audience because the substance of her argument is faulty. What makes us human, personal spiritual gain, does not translate to a willingness to pay for long-term resilience, to invest in actions that would reduce a low probability, high-risk future scenario, and to equate the purpose of the Lloyd's Register Foundation with a corporate intent is fundamentally misguided. As a foundation, Lloyd's Register Foundation has a philanthropic and charitable intent and thus is willing to incur the cost, but no other part of the economy is willing to incur that cost because there's not a recognition of the fundamental economic value by decision makers.
I think that's one of the longest sentences I've ever heard in the English language, but that was a good, thank you.
Take a breath.
You didn't actually, no. So Ruth, you get a chance to counter that.
I'm countering Fred's original statements, which I made extensive notes on, I would have to say. Fred said that society doesn't do irrational things. Now, let's look at collectively society's decisions. Donald Trump, Brexit. There are many examples where society does irrational things. Individually, we also do irrational things. We smoke, we make bad decisions, we get into fast cars, we live in London, all...
It's a pretty good life you've got. Can I share it for a while?
I know, yeah. I know. These are not, I mean, just listen to the language there. High probability, high risk intent or something. Who talks like that? Engineers talk like that. The rest of us get on and live happy, resilient, loving lives, building social networks. So this rationality is a false god. It isn't the way any of us live. You know, we have models and we make votes and we ask and we do invest in our tax system. And the foundation is a relatively recent thing. The business which the foundation sits on is 250 years old and has made a profit through that time. Has made a good old corporate profit. It just decides to invest that profit into charitable works, which is a business decision it makes, not a fluffy decision it makes.
Very. Could we have a round of applause for that? I don't. But on both sides, we've started really well.